This is incredible success for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And long time coming. I mean, didn't happen overnight, like the.
No, it kind of happened overnight.
It did happen.
I was a professional juvenile delinquent. The art of juvenile delinquency was perfected by myself and my
This
friend.
couldn't happen to a better person.
Hey, well, that's what I said last time I was on your show, and you disagreed with me.
Well, I've been wrong before, brother. You know, I know I said you would never be nothing.
Rick James was banned from talk shows after this happened. At the height of his fame, Rick James wasn't just a funk legend, he was unpredictable. During one explosive live interview, things quickly spiraled. What he said on air and what happened backstage left producers stunned.
What we gonna do with the funk, y'all? What you want us to do with the funk?
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it again.
From that moment on, doors quietly closed. But was it just that one outburst? Or was the industry already looking for a reason to shut him out? Let's find out. Rick James was one of the wildest and boldest music stars of the 1980s.
And when I'm feeling low, she covers as no surprise.
He had a loud personality, flashy clothes, and a love for drama. People loved his music, but his behavior was a big problem, especially on live TV. He was fun to watch, but also unpredictable. He would say or do things on talk shows that made people uncomfortable or angry. That's why, over time, many shows stopped inviting him. Rick James didn't just act wild off camera. He brought that same energy on stage and into interviews, and it caused a lot of trouble. One of the biggest moments that hurt Rick's TV career was his appearance on The Donahue Show in 1981.
Say out loud, your work will never hang in a museum.
No.
Bob!
Well, maybe it will, but probably not this Smolny.
Because why, Bob? What's the deal here? What are you telling us?
This was a big talk show at the time, watched by millions. Rick used the interview to speak out about racism in the music business. He believed that black artists were being used by record companies and not getting enough credit or money. While some people agreed with him, others thought he was being too aggressive. During the show, Rick argued with people in the audience and even acted like he was smoking a joint backstage. That shocked many viewers. It was clear Rick didn't care about being polite or following rules. Rick's wild behavior wasn't just on Donahue. On shows like Soul Train and American Bandstand, producers had a hard time dealing with him. He would sometimes say rude things or go off script. These shows were used to fund performances, not real drama. Rick's personality was so strong that he would take over the stage, whether the hosts liked it or not. This made some show producers nervous. They didn't know if he would follow directions or cause chaos. One very famous example happened on Soul Train when Rick first performed there. Fans were super excited to see him. Rick brought high energy, and people were ready for something special. But things got awkward fast. The host, Don Cornellius, made some sharp comments about Rick's wild style.
What we gonna do with the funk, y'all? What you want us to do with the funk?
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it again.
He joked about Rick's clothes and the way he acted. Don Cornelius was calm and cool, while Rick was full of fire. So, their talk felt tense. Rick didn't hold back. He joked back, throwing his own shade, and the crowd laughed. But you could tell Don wasn't happy. At first, people thought it was just two big stars joking around. Rick was known for being confident. Some would say he was full of himself. Don Cornelius also liked to throw in little jabs when he interviewed people. So, fans thought it was just funny banter. But over time, something changed. Rick and Don's talks started feeling colder, not playful. Insiders began to whisper that their relationship was not as friendly as it seemed on TV. In one interview, things got even more uncomfortable. Don Cornelius brought up Rick's bad boy image. He called Rick unpredictable. Rick didn't like that. He smiled and said, "Unpredictable gets people talking, Don. Isn't that why you invited me here?" The audience laughed, but the tension was real. Rick played it off like a joke. but it was clear he felt disrespected. This moment showed how their once funny friendship had turned sour.
Yes, Don.
Couldn't happen to a better person.
Hey, well, that's what I said last time I was on your show, and you disagreed with me.
Well, I've been wrong before, brother. You know, I know I said you would never be nothing.
People watching from home might have thought it was still fun, but behind the scenes, things were getting worse. After one interview, Rick told someone that Soul Train was stuck in the past. He said the show needed to keep up with the times and feature newer, edgier artists like him. When Don Cornellius heard about that comment, he wasn't happy. Sources say he felt Rick had crossed the line. He quietly made the decision to stop inviting Rick to the show. This was a big deal. Soul Train was one of the top music shows for black artists.
Very superstitious.
Being banned from it hurt Rick's image. But that wasn't the only show that started turning him away. The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, which was one of the biggest late-night shows ever.
I tell you,
Is it true?
No, I think I would recall that.
Never invited Rick, despite how popular he was. Many say it was because Rick's image was just too much. Producers were afraid he would say something offensive, or even cause legal problems if he did something wild while high on drugs. Rick was known for openly using drugs. He talked about it, joked about it, and sometimes even showed it.
And when I'm feeling low, she comes as no surprise.
His sexual image was also very strong. He didn't hide it, and many people thought it was too much for family-friendly TV. Some of the bigger shows didn't want to take the risk. After a few messy interviews, word began to spread in media circles. Don't book Rick James. People were scared of what he might do live on air. By the mid-1980s, Rick stopped appearing on mainstream late-night shows. He was still on music-based shows sometimes, but his TV presence had faded. Rick later admitted that he played a big part in his own fall. He once said, "I sabotaged myself. I scared people." He knew his behavior had closed doors for him. That kind of honesty showed he understood how his choices had affected his career. Rick's name still stayed in the headlines, though, often for the wrong reasons. One of his friends and fellow artists, Chaka Khan, recently talked about Rick's past.
I used to go to Rick James' house, and I used to go to Nicole's house. And that's how I did it. I was very undercover.
In a new interview, she shared stories about spending time with Rick during the height of their careers. She said that back then, cities like Oakland were major spots for drug dealing, and many artists went there to get high. She said Rick was deeply involved in that scene, and she saw it herself at his house. Chaka Khan made it clear that she used drugs too, but managed to stay in control. She said she never let it get in the way of her singing. But she admitted that almost everyone in the industry at that time was using drugs.
Well, I think part of the reason we're still here is because some of what was in them drugs probably was like formaldehyde. We're preserved. we're preserved. Had a formaldehyde type effect.
Some got clean, others didn't. Rick was one of the people who couldn't get out. She called it a wicked, wicked time. That phrase says a lot. It was a dark and dangerous period in music. When Rick died in 2004, the world lost a huge talent.
But the world would come to know him as Rick James. And his musical genius and slick sense of style would one day define a quantum moment in our culture.
The cause of death was heart failure, but doctors found something shocking. Rick had at least 9 different drugs in his system when he passed away. It proved that the lifestyle he lived eventually caught up with him. Chaka Khan's words make even more sense now. Many people never escaped that world. Rick came up poor. But Rick didn't start life as a superstar. His journey began in Buffalo, New York, where he had a tough childhood. His real name was James Ambrose Johnson Jr. His mom, Mabel, was a dancer for the famous performer Katherine Dunham. But she also had to run numbers to support the family. That means Rick saw both the beauty of the stage and the danger of street life. He met big jazz stars like Miles Davis and Etta James.
And I would rather be a blind girl.
But he also saw crime and poverty up close. Rick's early years were far from normal. In his book, Glow, Rick shared something very personal. He said he lost his virginity at just 9 or 10 years old to a teenage girl. He described himself as having a kinky nature from a young age. This experience, whether right or wrong, shaped the man he would become. His music later was full of themes of sex and rebellion. That wild side started early. As a teenager, Rick kept pushing boundaries. When he was just 15, he joined the Naval Reserve by lying about his age. He wanted to avoid being sent to the Vietnam War. But military life didn't suit him. He hated being told what to do. So he stopped showing up and started playing drums with jazz bands instead. This was the beginning of his music journey, and also where he started using drugs regularly. By 1964, the U.S. Navy had had enough of Rick James. He kept disappearing without permission, and they were tired of it. So they ordered him back on active duty. But Rick was not someone you could control easily. He didn't want to follow orders or wear a uniform anymore. In his usual bold style, he told the draft board to kiss his ashy black ass. Then he ran away to Toronto, Canada. That one decision changed the rest of his life. Toronto in the mid-1960s was full of young, talented musicians. It became the perfect place for Rick to hide out and find a new path in music. Once Rick arrived in Toronto, it didn't take long for him to meet other rising stars. He connected with people who would later become famous all over the world, like Joni Mitchell.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot.
And Neil Young.
Oh man, look at my life. I'm a lot like you.
These weren't just random meetings. They became friends and even started a rock band called the Mena Birds. They worked hard, played shows, and built a unique sound. Their music was so good that Motown Records noticed them. Soon, the group signed a deal with the famous label. This was a big deal, especially for Rick, who was still hiding from the U.S. military. Rick finally became famous when he signed with Motown Records in the late 1970s. His hit songs like Super Freak
That girl is pretty wild now.
and Give It To Me Baby
Give it to me, baby. Give it to me.
made him a star. He helped save Motown during a rough time and brought the label into a new era. But even as he rose to the top, his wild habits followed. He didn't change who he was. And while fans loved his boldness, the media world didn't always feel the same way. During this exciting time, Rick had a special moment with Stevie Wonder.
Very superstitious.
Stevie met Rick and was impressed by his musical talent. He asked Rick what his name was. Because Rick was still trying to hide his real identity, he didn't want to say his true name. So he quickly made one up. Ricky James Matthews. Stevie laughed and said the name was too long and suggested Rick shorten it. That's how the name Rick James was born. It started as a quick lie, but it became a name the world would never forget. But just as Rick's career was starting to look promising, trouble came back. The U.S. Navy finally found out where he was. They tracked him down, arrested him, and sent him to military prison. It could have ended his music dreams. Many people in that situation would have given up and lived a quiet life. But not Rick. He was determined to keep going. After serving time, he came out more focused. He didn't want to just be a singer. He wanted to be a star, and he worked hard to get there. Rick James didn't just become a star, he became a legend. He gave the world some of the most unforgettable funk songs. His music was full of energy, fun, and unforgettable beats. People still dance to his songs at parties today. But Rick was not only known for his music. His wild lifestyle also made him famous. He became even more well-known when Chappelle's show aired funny skits about his crazy adventures. These skits helped a whole new generation learn about Rick James. One story that people still talk about involves Rick James, boxer Mike Tyson, and actor Alfonso Ribeiro, also known as Carlton from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I never say that. It's made like a banana and split.
According to Mike Tyson's book, Rick once walked into a hotel, greeted Tyson, then turned to Ribeiro and asked if he was an actor. Before anyone could say anything, Rick punched Ribeiro and took his beer. Even Mike Tyson, one of the toughest fighters in the world, was shocked. That's how unpredictable and wild Rick could be. When Rick first got to Toronto, life was tough. He didn't know anyone and had no place to go. Not long after arriving, he was attacked and badly beaten. But help came from an unexpected place. 3 men saw him and stepped in to help. One of them was Levon Helm, who would later become a famous drummer. They picked Rick up and took him to a concert. That night changed Rick's life. Watching the performers on stage made him realize what he wanted to do. From that moment on, he knew music was his true calling. After his time in Canada, Rick traveled to Los Angeles. That city was full of change, music, and young people trying to break the rules. Rick fit right in. He started hanging out with big names in the rock world and tried different kinds of music. He even got his first taste of acid, a strong drug, from Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors. Rick was surrounded by famous and talented people. But even though he had made a lot of progress, his journey to becoming a star was still just beginning. Rick never liked to play it safe with his music. He wanted to try new things and be different. He worked with some of the best people in the industry. Sometimes it caused drama, but Rick didn't care. He wanted to leave his mark. One of his biggest inspirations was Stevie Wonder. Stevie didn't just support Rick. He gave him powerful advice. Stevie once told him, "Forget the rules, make your own." Rick took that advice seriously. He made music that sounded like nothing else. His songs were loud, funky, and full of soul, and they helped shape the future of funk. Rick and Teena Marie, match made in heaven. Another important person in Rick's life was Teena Marie. She wasn't just a partner in music. She was his creative soulmate. Rick discovered her at Motown and saw her talent right away. They made many great songs together. One of their most famous duets was Fire and Desire. Fans loved their music because you could feel the passion and energy between them. Behind the scenes, they pushed each other to be better. They argued, laughed, and challenged one another. But the results were pure magic every time they performed. But even as Rick made music history, not everything in his life was bright. In 2020, a woman came forward with serious accusations. She said that in 1979, when she was just 15 years old and living in a group home, Rick assaulted her. She filed a lawsuit asking for $50 million. According to her, Rick had a connection to the group home and came to visit while the girls were eating dinner. Most of the girls were excited to see him, but she didn't know who he was and went to her room. She claimed Rick followed her, forced himself on her, and told her to stay silent or he would hurt her. The woman said her pain never left her. She lived with it every single day. The trauma she went through followed her like a dark shadow. It affected her deeply. She turned to alcohol and drugs to try to forget. But the pain was stronger than the numbness. She had very low self-esteem and often felt like she wasn't good enough. She even had thoughts of ending her own life. At night, she couldn't sleep well because of the nightmares, Sometimes her body would shake and she'd feel like she was back in that terrible moment. These were panic attacks and flashbacks. In a lawsuit she later filed, she wrote, "This traumatic experience has caused me everlasting damage, and I would like to preserve my privacy in this matter." Her words show how deeply she was hurt and how hard it was for her to heal. In his early music days, Rick James moved to Los Angeles, hoping to chase his dreams. But things in LA were far from peaceful. On one of his first nights there, he stayed at the home of musician Stephen Stills. He was sleeping on Stephen's couch when he woke up to a terrifying sight. A man sitting on the floor with blood coming from his wrists. Rick panicked and ran to get help. Later, he found out the man was Jim Morrison. Rick couldn't believe it. That wasn't the last time they met. At another show, when the doors opened for Buffalo Springfield, Morrison tricked Rick into taking acid for the first time. That drug experience marked the beginning of Rick's long struggle with drug addiction. It became a big part of his life and his problems. While Rick was trying to build his music career in California, he worked closely with a bassist named Greg Reeves. Rick introduced Greg to Neil Young. But instead of Rick getting a big break, Greg was that one who joined the well-known band Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That was a hard blow for Rick, but instead of giving up, he kept going. He formed his own rock band and called it Salt and Pepper. Rick was determined to make it on his own. One of the scariest moments in Rick's life happened in 1969. His friend, a hairstylist named Jay Sebring, invited him to a party at actress Sharon Tate's house. Rick had been partying hard the night before and felt too sick and tired to go. The next morning, he woke up to terrible news. Jay and everyone at the party had been murdered by a group called the Manson family.
A wandering band of members of a so-called religious cult with a leader they call Jesus has had 3 of its followers arrested in the investigation of the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others.
Rick was in shock. He could have been there too. That moment haunted him for many years. It made him think about how close he came to dying. Even with all the ups and downs, Rick didn't give up on his dreams. In 1970, he joined a band called Heaven and Earth, which later changed its name to Great White Cane. In 1972, they released an album, but Rick always wanted more. He formed another band called Hot Lips. He also worked with a Toronto blues band named McKenna Mendelssohn Mainline. He helped write a song called You Make the Magic. That song was later recorded by the Chambers Brothers. Rick was always moving, always working on music. As Rick became more famous, another artist named Prince was also rising in the music world. Both were bold performers, loved bright clothes, and mixed funk and R&B in new ways. They even went on tour together in 1980 during Rick's Fire It Up tour. But instead of being friends, they became enemies. Rick believed Prince was copying him. He said Prince stole his dance moves and tried to outshine him on stage. Rick felt like he was being disrespected. In his book, Glow, Rick wrote that Prince tried to make him look bad. He didn't even like Prince's music. In an interview, Rick said, "I can't believe people actually buy his records." Prince didn't care for Rick either. He stayed quiet and didn't respond to Rick's comments. Things got worse in 1982 at an after-party for the American Music Awards. Rick's mother, who was a big fan of Prince, walked up to ask for an autograph. Prince turned around and ignored her. Rick was furious when he found out. He rushed over, ready to fight. Prince's manager quickly stepped in and told Prince to apologize. Prince did, but Rick was still angry. He wrote in his book that he really wanted to hit him. That night, Prince took things even further. He met Rick's ex-girlfriend, Denise Matthews, and started dating her.
Boy.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Not only that, He helped her become a singer under the name Vanity. Rick saw this as a huge betrayal. He began calling Prince bad names whenever he could. For Rick, this was personal. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about pride and hurt. The anger between them never really ended. Their fight was one of the biggest in music history. Rick James gave a lot to music. He helped bring funk and R&B to the top. He worked hard even when life was tough, but the years of drug use and stress caught up to him. His health got worse, and he died at his home in Los Angeles. Fans around the world mourned. One fan said, "I don't care what anyone says. He was a musical genius. He could play so many instruments, was an amazing producer, and was a great singer. It just sucks that his persona overshadows his immense talent." That's the story of Rick James, a man with great talent, deep struggles, and a life full of highs and lows.